You know the moment. It usually arrives without warning. 1 minute, you're just talking. You're discussing the budget, or whose turn it is to do the dishes, or a deadline that was missed at work. It feels routine. It feels safe. But then the tone shifts. A single sentence hangs in the air a little too long. A specific word lands like a slap. Suddenly the temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees, or maybe it spikes, flashing hot against the back of your neck. Your stomach tightens. It's that familiar sinking knot of anxiety. Your heart starts to hammer against your ribs, a frantic rhythm that drowns out your thoughts. You feel the blood rush away from your brain, leaving you foggy, reactive, and defensive. You are standing on a precipice. In this split second, you have a choice. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a reflex. You can shut down, swallow your truth, and let silence grow like a cancer between you and the other person. Or you can lash out. You can raise your voice, use sharp sarcasm, and burn the bridge to the ground just to win the point. Most of us spend our entire lives bouncing between these two extremes. Silence or violence. We retreat into a shell or we explode. And later, usually at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, we replay the scene over and over again. We cringe at what we said. We agonize over what we didn't say. We wonder why, despite our best intentions, we can't seem to communicate with the people who matter most when the stakes are high. We tell ourselves it's their fault. They're impossible. They're stubborn. But deep down, there is a haunting suspicion that perhaps we simply don't know how to drive the car when the road gets slippery. This isn't just about arguments. This is about the pivot points of your life. The moments where relationships are either forged in steel or shattered like glass. This is the landscape of crucial conversations. The authors, Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler didn't write this book to help you win debates. They wrote it because they noticed a pattern. They looked at the most influential people, the strongest marriages, and the most effective teams, and they found that the difference wasn't intelligence, it wasn't charisma, it wasn't power. The difference was how they handled the moments when opinions varied. Stakes were high and emotions ran strong. Most of us treat these conversations like a battlefield. We view the other person as an opponent to be defeated or a threat to be avoided. We think the goal is to survive. But the philosophy here offers a radical shift. It suggests that the conversation isn't a battle, it's a pool of shared meaning. Imagine a reservoir in the center of the room. Every time someone speaks openly and honestly, they add information to that pool. Even if you disagree with it, even if it hurts to hear, the fact that it is out in the open means it can be managed. The more information in the pool, the better the decisions, and the stronger the connection. But when we get scared, when that physical reaction kicks in, we stop adding to the pool. We start hoarding, we start hiding, and the pool dries up. When the pool is empty, we act on assumptions, fear, and malice. So, how do we keep the water flowing when every instinct in our body is screaming at us to fight or flee? It begins with understanding the biology of your own stupidity. That sounds harsh, but it is scientifically accurate. When you step into a crucial conversation, say, asking your boss for a raise, or confronting a partner about a betrayal, your body treats it the same way it treats a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes. Your adrenal glands dump adrenaline into your bloodstream. Your brain diverts blood away from the prefrontal cortex, the part of you that uses logic, empathy, and complex reasoning, and pumps it into your major muscle groups. You are literally being prepared to punch something or run away. This is why, in the middle of an argument, you can't remember the perfect counterpoint. It's why you stutter or why you say things that are cruel and simplistic. Your smart brain has left the building. You are operating on ancient hardware designed for physical survival, not social navigation. Let's look at a man we'll call David. David has a roommate who never pays his share of the utilities on time. For months, David says nothing. He values peace. He tells himself, it's not worth the fight. I'll just cover it this time. This is the silence trap. He thinks he's being kind, but he's actually being dishonest. Inside, David is stewing. He starts to tell himself a story about his roommate. He's selfish. He's taking advantage of me. He doesn't respect me. Then, one Tuesday evening, the roommate makes a small comment about the apartment being messy. David snaps. The adrenaline hits. He doesn't talk about the mess. He screams about the money, the disrespect, the lazy attitude, and everything he's held back for 6 months. He calls his roommate a leech. The roommate, blindsided and attacked, yells back. They don't speak for a week. The living situation becomes toxic. David fell for what we call the fool's choice. The fool's choice is the false belief that you only have 2 options: tell the truth and lose the friend, or keep the friend and lie about the truth. Our brains love this binary. It's simple. But it's a lie. The masterful communicators, the ones who navigate life with grace, reject the fool's choice. They ask a different question. They ask, how can I be 100% honest and be 100% respectful? It seems impossible, doesn't it? Honesty usually feels like a weapon, but that's only because we usually wait until we are angry to use it. To escape the fool's choice, you have to do something counterintuitive. You have to stop looking at the other person and start looking at yourself. This brings us to the first great pillar of navigating the storm. Start with heart. When the heat rises, our motives change instantly. We might start the conversation wanting to solve a problem, but the moment we feel attacked, our motive shifts. It becomes save face, or win, or punish them, or keep the peace at all costs. You have to catch this shift. You have to be the watcher of your own mind. Imagine you're in a meeting. You're presenting a project you've worked on for weeks. A colleague, Sarah, cuts you off and says, "This data looks outdated. Did you even check the new reports?" Boom. The physiological spike. Your chest tightens. Your immediate motive shifts to defend myself and discredit Sarah. You're about to say, well, if you had sent the reports on time, I would have. Or at least I actually did the work. If you say that, you've lost. The pool of shared meaning is poisoned. Start with heart means you hit the pause button. You take a breath, a literal, deep breath to get oxygen back to your brain, and you ask yourself a specific set of questions. What do I really want here? Do I want to embarrass Sarah? Do I want to look like the smartest person in the room? Or do I want the project to succeed? Do I want a good working relationship with her? If the answer is, I want the project to succeed, your response changes completely. You don't fight. You don't flee. You engage. You might say, that's a good point. I want to make sure we have the absolute best data for this. Let's look at those new reports together right now. See the difference? The first response was war. The second response was construction. This requires a level of self-awareness that feels unnatural. It requires you to admit that you play a role in the problem. It forces you to look at your own stories. We are storytelling machines. We don't just see the world, we interpret it. If your partner comes home late and doesn't call, that is a fact. But the story you tell is, they don't care about my feelings. If you act on the story, you attack. You're so selfish. If you stick to the facts, you inquire. You were late and didn't call. I was worried. What happened? The stories we tell ourselves usually cast us as the victim and the other person as the villain. The victim is helpless. The villain is evil. It's a perfect tragedy. But life isn't a tragedy. It's a complex drama. To break the victim/villain cycle, you have to turn yourself into an actor and the other person into a human. Ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know about my role in this? Maybe you're the victim of a bad boss, but you're pretending not to know that you've missed your last 3 deadlines. Maybe you're the victim of a distant spouse, but you're pretending not to know that you've been criticizing them constantly for months. Owning your role doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're empowered. Victims have things done to them. Actors make things happen. Let's go back to the idea of the pool of shared meaning. There is a misconception that being good at crucial conversations means you are soft, that you are a pushover, that you nod and smile while people walk all over you. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the people who struggle the most with these concepts are often the nice people. They value harmony so much that they sacrifice truth. They think that by withholding their honest opinion, they are saving the relationship. But withholding truth is a form of manipulation. You are managing the other person's reality to keep yourself comfortable. Think about a time you held something back from someone you love. Maybe it was a habit that annoyed you, or a financial decision you disagreed with. You stayed silent. You smiled. But did the feeling go away? No. It leaked out. It came out in your body language. It came out in the way you rolled your eyes when they turned their back. It came out in the lack of warmth in your voice. And here is the tragedy: they knew. Human beings are incredibly perceptive. We might not know what is wrong, but we know something is wrong. When your words say, "I'm fine," but your energy says, "I resent you," the other person feels unsafe. They sense the incongruence, and when people feel unsafe, they go into that fight or flight mode. So your attempt to keep the peace actually created a war. This brings us to the edge of the most critical skill in the entire book. We've talked about your internal state, starting with heart, checking your motives. But what about the external atmosphere? You can have the purest motives in the world. You can truly want what's best for everyone. But if the other person feels unsafe, they will not be able to hear you. Safety is the condition that allows the conversation to happen. Imagine safety like oxygen. When it's there, you don't notice it. You just breathe. You can talk about difficult things, feedback, failures, fears, because you know the other person respects you and cares about your interests. But the moment safety disappears, it's like the air has been sucked out of the room. You can't focus on the topic anymore because you are suffocating. You are panicking. You have probably been in a conversation where you tried to give someone constructive criticism, and they immediately got angry. You thought, wow, they can't handle the truth. But the authors argue that people rarely get defensive because of what you are saying. They get defensive because of why they think you are saying it. They don't fear your content. They fear your intent. If I trust that you care about me, you can tell me I'm failing, and I will listen. If I think you want to control me or hurt me, you can tell me I look nice, and I'll wonder what you want from me. So, the master skill is not fixing your argument. It's fixing the safety. But how do you do that? How do you create safety when the other person is already shouting or already shutting down? How do you inject oxygen into a vacuum? It starts with learning to watch for the signs. Most of us are so focused on the content, the words, the facts, the logic, that we miss the conditions. We are so busy arguing about the dirty dishes that we don't notice our partners crossed their arms, turned away, and checked out of the relationship. We are driving the car, looking at the map, not the road. You have to learn to step out of the content and look at the conditions. You have to ask, is silence or violence happening right now? If the answer is yes, you have to stop. Stop arguing. Stop trying to make your point. Your point doesn't matter right now. The vehicle's off the road. You can't drive a broken car. You need to step out of the conversation and rebuild safety. But this raises a terrifying question. When you are in the heat of the moment, when your own heart is pounding, and you feel attacked, how do you find the strength to drop your weapon first? How do you make it safe for someone who is currently making it unsafe for you? It requires a specific tool, a way of speaking that disarms the survival instinct without surrendering your own ground. It's a technique that bridges the gap between two opposing realities. We're standing at the threshold of the how. We understand the biology. We understand the need for a shared pool of meaning. We know we must start with our own hearts. But what are the actual words? When the silence is deafening or the yelling has started, what do you actually say to bring the safety back? The answer lies in a concept called contrasting, and it is the key to unlocking the handcuffs of misunderstanding. Contrasting is the emergency brake for a conversation that is spinning out of control. It is not an apology. This is where most people get confused. They think that to create safety, they have to backpedal. They have to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that," and then water down their message until it means nothing. Contrasting is different. It is a precise surgical tool designed to kill the monster in the other person's head without killing your point. The monster is the story they are telling themselves about your intent. Remember, they don't fear your content, they fear your intent. They think you are trying to humiliate them, control them, or ignore them. Contrasting addresses this directly using a don't/do statement. You explicitly state what you do not mean to address their fears. Then you explicitly state what you do mean to reinforce your purpose. Let's go back to David and his roommate. The roommate is yelling. He thinks David is calling him a leech. If David uses contrasting, he stops the argument about the money. He looks his roommate in the eye, lowers his voice, and says, "I don't want you to think I'm judging you or that I don't value our friendship. That is not what this is about. I do want to talk about how we handle the bills so that I don't feel stressed at the end of the month." Do you feel the shift? The don't part, I don't want you to think I'm judging you, turns off the fight or flight response. It tells the roommate, you are safe, I am not the enemy. The do part, I do want to handle the bills, keeps the topic on the table. This works in the boardroom too. I don't mean to suggest that your team isn't working hard. I know you've been pulling long hours. I do mean that the current results aren't meeting the client's timeline, and we need a new strategy. It sounds simple, but in the heat of the moment, when your blood is boiling, your instinct is not to clarify. Your instinct is to win. You want to say, I am judging you because you are lazy. Overriding that instinct is the work of a master communicator. It requires you to value the relationship more than your ego. Once you have established safety, once the oxygen is back in the room, you still have to deliver the message. You still have to talk about the hard thing. How do you tell your spouse you're unhappy? How do you tell your boss their idea is dangerous? How do you speak the unspeakable without triggering an explosion? The authors provide a path. They call it state. Most of us start our conversations at the end. We start with our feelings or our conclusions. We say, you're disrespectful, or this project is a disaster. These are not facts. These are stories, and stories create resistance. If you want to be heard, you must reverse the flow. You must start with the one thing that cannot be argued. You must start with the facts. Facts are the least controversial element of communication. They are what a video camera would record. You arrived at 9:15 a.m. That is a fact. You're always late is a story. You spent $500 without asking is a fact. You're irresponsible with money is a story. Start with the facts. They are the solid ground. Yesterday, you promised to have the draft done by noon. It is now 4 p.m. and I haven't received it. It's cold. It's neutral. It's safe. Once the facts are on the table, then and only then do you tell your story. But you tell it as a story, not as the truth. When I didn't get the draft, I started to wonder if you were taking this deadline seriously. Notice the language? I started to wonder. You are owning your interpretation. You aren't accusing them of not taking it seriously. You are admitting that this is the story playing in your head. Then you do the most important part. You ask for their path. Am I missing something? What happened on your end? This is the humility check. It signals that you know you don't have all the information. Maybe their computer crashed. Maybe they were pulled into an emergency meeting. By asking, you invite them to add to the pool of meaning instead of defending their fortress. This is how you speak persuasively, not abrasively. You lay out the facts. You share your tentative conclusion, and you invite them to dismantle it. You make it easy for them to agree with you, and safe for them to disagree with you. But here is the twist, the uncomfortable turn in our own narrative. We can learn all these tools. We can memorize the acronyms. We can practice the don't/do statements in the mirror. We can master the biology of stress, and yet we will still fail. Why? Because deep down there is a part of us that doesn't want a resolution. There is a dark, quiet part of the human psyche that prefers being right over being happy. Being a victim is seductive. It feels good to be the one who was wronged. It grants us moral superiority. If I am the victim, I don't have to change. You have to change. If I am the martyr, I get to complain to my friends and have them validate my pain. If I fix the conversation, I lose my excuse. If I use these tools and we actually solve the problem, I can no longer hold this over your head. I have to let go of my resentment. And for many of us, our resentment is a security blanket. We wrap ourselves in it because it defines who we are. The hardest part of crucial conversations isn't the technique. It's the surrender. It's the willingness to give up the grim satisfaction of being the better person. It's the courage to admit that maybe, just maybe, the reason this relationship is stuck isn't because they are impossible, but because you have been using your silence or your violence to manipulate the outcome. You have to decide what you want. Do you want to win the argument, or do you want to build a life? You cannot have both. If you choose to build, there is one final step. How many times have you had a good talk? You felt heard. They felt heard. You hugged. You felt a wave of relief. And then, 2 weeks later, nothing has changed. The same problem resurfaces. The frustration returns. Double the strength. This happens because you moved to understanding, but you didn't move to action. A pool of shared meaning is useless if nobody drinks from it. A crucial conversation is not finished until you answer 4 questions. Who does what? By when? And how will we follow up? It sounds like project management, and it is. It is the project management of your life. If you agree to budget better, but you don't decide who will track the spending, what app you will use, and when you will review it, you haven't made a decision. You've made a wish. Vague commitments are the ghosts that haunt relationships. I'll try harder means nothing. I'll be more attentive is vapor. I will put my phone in the drawer at 6 p.m. every night so we can talk for 30 minutes. That is a commitment. That is actionable. That is real. Without the specifics, the safety you worked so hard to build will erode. Trust isn't built on grand declarations. It is built on small agreements kept over time. So, where does this leave us? We are walking through a world of fragile connections. Every day, you will face moments that threaten to break them. You will feel the heat rise in your neck. You will feel the silence creeping in. You will hear the stories telling you that you are under attack. In that moment, I want you to remember the pool. The pool of meaning is the lifeblood of your relationship, your team, your family. Your only job is to keep it full. When it drains, don't throw a stone. Add a drop of water. Add a fact. Add a don't/do statement. Add a question. It requires you to be the first one to lower your weapon. It requires you to be the one who breathes. It requires you to be the adult in the room, even when you feel like a scared child. It is unfair. It is exhausting, but the alternative is a life of shallow conversations and broken ties. The quality of your life is the quality of your conversations. Every time you choose to step out of the silence and out of the violence and step into the dialogue, you are not just solving a problem. You are proving to yourself and to the person across from you that what you have together is strong enough to hold the truth. And that is a conversation worth having. So, here's your challenge for the next 24 hours. Pick one relationship, just one. One that feels stuck. One where there is a silence you've been avoiding or a violence you've been justifying. Catch the story you are telling yourself about that person. Ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? What if a reasonable, rational, and decent person did this? Then, open your mouth. Start with heart, make it safe, and fill the pool. You might be surprised by who is waiting for you on the other side. If you found value in this deep dive, if you felt that moment of recognition, subscribe to Smart Read Digest. We don't just summarize books. We extract the wisdom that changes how you live. Go there next. Start the work. We'll see you there.